My grandfather possessed the soul of an inventor. Throughout his life, he tirelessly tinkered with various objects, either transforming existing ones into something entirely new, or at least different, or constructing innovative contraptions from spare parts. Although his inventions never caused any major disruptions, they never failed to fill me with delight, even from a young age. As a little boy, I eagerly anticipated each visit to his home, where I would sit on the couch, my face reflecting absolute fascination, as he proudly displayed his latest creation from his workshop. It was like having my own personal Santa Claus, tirelessly working year-round to fill my 8-year-old mind with wonder and joy. My older sister, Joan, shared my excitement, despite her attempts to conceal it, perhaps to appear cooler or more mature than me. As we grew older, our visits to our grandfather became less frequent due to the demands of real life. However, we always made sure to see him at least a few times a year, and without fail, he had something new to unveil to us. He truly was a genius. I should clarify that this is not to imply that something terrible happened to him. I'm sure there are days when he wishes it had been him in the hospital instead of my sister. No, he passed away peacefully in his sleep, and I hope his departure was serene. Even after all these years, I cannot bring myself to be angry about what happened, or to hate him. He had no idea of the consequences, no inkling of how things would unfold. He did sense that something was amiss, though. He wasn't a senile old fool. The first time he looked through those peculiar lenses, he knew something was off. Yet he considered it a minor oddity, something unsettling and intriguing, but nothing dangerous. Nothing that would cause harm to anyone. I think deep down, he simply wanted to reassure himself that he wasn't losing his mind. He needed confirmation that he wasn't hallucinating. And who could blame him? That particular year, there were 3 of us. Myself, my girlfriend Justine, and my sister Joan. Both Justine and I were accustomed to our grandfather's boundless enthusiasm when showing us his latest creation. So, when he greeted us at the door with an uncharacteristically subdued demeanor, it took us by surprise. I was a bit disappointed because I had hoped Justine would have the opportunity to experience the unveiling of a new invention. As I had described to her, we had just started dating that year, and it would have been her first glimpse into the incredible things my grandfather could create. The day passed pleasantly as we chatted, enjoyed lunch, and watched television together. Eventually, Joan mustered the courage to ask him if he had something special to show us that day. We knew he had been working on something because, although we hadn't seen him in person for a while, we had spoken to him on the phone in the preceding months, and he had eagerly mentioned that he was working on a project he believed would be extraordinary. I still cannot explain how he crafted them, nor would I reveal such details if I could. Nor can I tell you what his original concept for those peculiarly colored glass lenses was before that fateful day when he looked through them and witnessed what he did. He never shared the specifics of his work with us beforehand, wanting to surprise us. Afterward, I believe he was terrified at the thought of anyone replicating what he had created. All I know is that when Joan pressed him to reveal his latest invention, he appeared nervous in a way I had never seen before. He seemed deeply troubled by something. He hesitated before speaking, unsure if he should reveal anything at all. Eventually, he explained that the nature of his creation had changed after an unusual event, and he wasn't certain if it was wise to show us the end result. Now, whether someone is 2 years old or in their 20s, the surest way to intensify their desire for something is to tell them they can't have it. So, his reluctance, which, at the time, we both likely believed was a feigned attempt to heighten the suspense before the unveiling, only fueled our curiosity further. With a little persuasion, he agreed to show us and left to retrieve it. He returned moments later, holding what appeared to be a pair of glasses. However, there was one significant difference. The lenses were unlike any glass we had ever seen. Describing their color accurately is a challenge. Words like reddish or greenish would be insufficient. In fact, they didn't precisely resemble any single color. When you tilted them one way, they appeared different from when you tilted them in another direction. I realize this probably sounds more like magic than something a well-intentioned old man could create in his humble workshop. But that's the truth of it. Joan inquired about their purpose, and our grandfather paused for a few moments, seemingly unsure how to answer. Eventually, he concluded that we had to experience them for ourselves, because he was certain that neither of us would believe him if he explained. Joan expressed her eagerness to try them first, but as she reached for the glasses on the table, he reached out and grasped her hand. He warned her that the experience might be startling at first, but she wasn't in any danger. If she became frightened, she could simply remove the glasses. He assured her that what she was about to witness might not make any more sense to her than it did to him. But we were all present, and she was safe. I could tell Joan was a little afraid. She was never good at hiding her emotions, and even I felt unsettled by our grandfather's uncharacteristically ominous tone. Joan placed the glasses on her face, and we waited. She gasped, and for the next few moments, she appeared more puzzled than anything else. Her lips moved soundlessly, and I thought I caught a faint, "No, that's not right," whispered under her breath, as she seemed to gaze at something none of us could see. Then, she began screaming. I am unsure if you have ever witnessed the bone-chilling scream of terror in real life. Let me assure you, it is nothing like what you see in movies. Films fail to capture the dreadful sound of a loved one's piercing scream, resembling more of an animal's cry than a human's. They cannot evoke the emotions I felt at that moment when I witnessed Joan forcefully removing the glasses from her head and flinging them across the room. The sight of Joan then beginning to claw at her own eyes, unleashing a scream louder than anyone should be capable of, was beyond any preparation. It took all three of us to restrain her initially. With her pinned down to prevent self-harm, Justine, my grandfather, and I held her while I urgently called for an ambulance. I had to endure the heart-wrenching scene as she was strapped down and wheeled into the back of the vehicle, thrashing, hissing, and shrieking like a deranged creature, consumed entirely by fear. When I explained the events to the skeptical, if not entirely disbelieving hospital staff, and later to the specialists called in to address my sister's distress, I was well aware of how incredulous my account must have sounded. The disappearance of the glasses made it difficult to substantiate what had transpired. It was nearly a year later, long after my sister had been committed, that my grandfather finally confessed to me that he had destroyed them. I'm uncertain if possessing the glasses could have aided the doctors in rectifying the situation or providing a solution. Somehow I doubt it. I cannot truly blame him for his actions, as they were driven by guilt and a genuine desire to ensure this torment would never recur. Curiosity compelled me to inquire about what my sister had witnessed that day when my grandfather disclosed his actions. I demanded, in an angry and raised voice, to know what had led my sister to this state after all this time. Whatever had affected her so deeply, so profoundly, that she was no longer recognizable as the person I had grown up with. He led me to his workshop and rummaged through the cluttered space filled with unfinished and abandoned inventions, eventually producing 2 glass fragments reminiscent of those fitted into the glasses. He warned me that describing it would sound insane, but insisted that if I wanted to comprehend, I had to see for myself. Despite his plea for me not to proceed, as he believed knowledge wouldn't bring any solace, I held the glass up to my eyes. In an instant, everything transformed. The room no longer contained only my grandfather. Dozens of others were present, yet they were not human. They appeared pale, emaciated, and hunched over, dressed in dark garments. Their lips were black, and their wide, lidless eyes seemed to bulge unnaturally from their skulls, creating a disconcerting and grotesque sight. Their mouths were filled with hundreds of needle-like teeth, while their fingers were grotesquely elongated, ending in dark, viciously pointed nails that scraped against the floor as they moved. And though their lips moved silently, they were all attempting to communicate, striving to convey an unheard message through dozens upon dozens of voices. Overwhelmed by shock, I dropped the glasses to the ground. My grandfather swiftly brought his foot down, crushing them into powder beneath his heel, muttering that he should have done so from the start. Placing an arm on my shoulder, he inquired about my well-being. I was far from fine, and he had been right. What I had witnessed only worsened things. It did not provide any resolution. It took me some time to unravel the mystery. I pondered why this horrifying experience affected my sister so profoundly, while I emerged from it frightened, but not burdened by the same mental scars. The glasses only allowed me to see the creatures. I couldn't hear what they were attempting to convey or comprehend the message they sought to impart, but my sister, being deaf, could read their lips.